Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's river fly tutorial. Back to reality. I gave you a little dry fly last week, but this time of year, so we're well into autumn now, nearly getting into winter. All my fishing on the river mostly is about grayling fishing, and you can't rely on the river being in perfect nick. The weather's generally pretty poor, but that shouldn't stop you getting out. In this pattern, even when the river's high and dirty, will always take you a few fish. So without further ado, let's get into it. In the vise then is a Hanak H490 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's a black nickel hook and it's on a heavy wire gauge. Now I've coupled that with a slotted tungsten bead at 4.6. These ones are from Troutline and it's copper. Thread I'm going to be using today is the Semprfli Nano silk and it's at 12.0. First thing I'm going to do then is get a little bit of super glue onto the shank of my hook, just in behind the bead. Then I'm going to use my thread to spread that glue up the shank. Just make sure that it is sitting right over the eye of the hook. Now, as I was saying earlier in the introduction, I'm a lot more inclined to stick on a big pattern like this when the water's high and dirty. You know, in clearer water, I'm all about trying to get weight onto smaller size hooks, but when the water's dirty, I think the fish have got to be able to see it to take it. So I've got that well bedded on with super glue. I'm just going to add a little bit of wax to my Nano silk and then get a bed of thread down on the remainder of the shank. Now, this fly incorporates mostly CDC type materials, and the reason for that is it traps in air bubbles, which can be really attractive to the fish. Now I'm going to add in a little tag onto this fly, and I'm going to be using some of this purple shimmer. I'm not quite sure what it's called actually. It's designed for perdigon nymphs, but I'm going to use it to add a tag into this fly. So I'm just going to catch that in on the end here, then bring my hook back. Now it's very thin and it takes a little bit of working. I just get as many turns on as possible. And that will do me distance wise, and then when I'm coming back up I can take a little bit more care to get touch and turns in, just so I get that block of a tag. Purple's really good for grayling. It does work well. No, I'm not saying that it will only catch grayling, this will catch a trout as well. And when you can't stay in the house, even when the river is lapping up the banks, then, you know, needs must is what I would say. So I've caught my tag in there and that's secure. Next then, I'm going to add in my tail, and what I'm using is a CDC Plume. This one's from Troutline. It's black, or it's been dyed black should I say, and I've already picked one out of the packet here. So I'm just going to catch that in with a couple of turns, loose turns, and then adjust the length of the tail. Been overzealous there, and then I can come back and there we go. Remove the waste. Next I'm going to add in my rib. I'm using some of the UTC Ultra Wire in copper. This is small, and I've got a piece that I can't pick up with my hands. Here, I'm just going to catch that in. The entire length of the body, and then I'm going to come back to the base of the fly. Now what the CDC does, and the reason I like to use it is as well as lots of bags of movement, it does trap the odd air bubble in, which gives the fly quite an appealing look. I'm using some CDC dubbing. This one's from Hanak and it's been dyed black, but it's not jet black, unfortunately. It's kind of a very dark, it's got a greeny tinge to my eyes, but you know, my wife always said I'm colourblind, so it might well be black to everyone else, but it looks kind of mossy green to me. But still, CDC, it's working with the theme. It's going to give me them air bubbles that I'm after, and once I've dubbed it on, it dubs on fairly easy. I can then catch that in. Try and keep it nice and even. If you get a little taper, all the better. Then once you've got that on, you can come round in the opposite direction with your rib, and that just gives a little bit of protection, keeps it from straggling out too much. Catch that rib in, a couple of turns in front of your wire rib, hold your thread taut and twist away. There we go, not too bad, it's looking okay. Next then, we're going to add the big pink CDC collar. Now what I'm using for that is, again, it's from Hanak, it's CDC feathers and the bean dyed pink. Now I would usually use a tool that I've got, but what I thought I'd show you is a little tip, a more inexpensive tip if you like. So I've taken this bit of foam block that I've used for various bits and bobs, and I've put a little slit using a scalpel into the foam block. And all I'm going to do is, off camera, I'm going to take my CDC feather and I'm going to tuck that into the foam, and I'll bring this up to the camera so you can see what I've achieved with that. Now you can get proper blocks, wooden blocks, metal blocks. I've got both, plastic even, but this achieves the same thing. And if you're just starting out with tying, or you don't tie a lot of bugs with CDC collars, then this is a great wee tip. It's cheap and it's easy to do. So scalpel, little slit, put your CDC feather in, then come in with a clip. And again, I've got this one's a Pettijohn one, but I've got other ones which are much less expensive. Once you've caught it in, hold, pinch down, pull it out. So you've got it there like that. You can use a bulldog clip. It's not quite as effective. When I started out, I used a bulldog clip, but over the years, you will start to build quite an incredible amount of fly tying materials and tools, and eventually you'll start to get all these Gucci little bits of kit. But that's just a little fly tying hack, if you like, to get you started. So while I've been blathering on, my thread's probably wound down to its natural state, and I'm able to come in with my needle and open that up into a dubbing loop. That's a good day when it goes in first time. So I've got my little loop. I'm going to come in with my CDC that I've managed to get with that little tip I showed you, and then keeping tension on the thread because you want to trap that in. Just spin that up, and you'll see in a moment, once I bring the dubbing brush up to the camera, that I've got a nice little brush. Now it's quite thick, and I want that to be thick. As I said, this is for fishing in dirty water, so I want there to be a bulk of a fly there that the fish can see. So as you can see, I've got my dubbing brush made, and I'm just going to come round now, and as I come up, I'm going to slick it back. Each time, slick back until you've run out of CDC. A couple of turns, and any stray sort of fibres that you're not keen on, you can take out. As you can see, it looks quite a mouthful, but once it's wet, actually, it does slim right down. Okay, to finish off then, I'm going to be using some Spectra Dub from Hens. This is the number 45. Unfortunately, it's not even a patch on what the Hens number 45 used to look like, and in fact I don't really like it anymore, but I've bought a packet of it, so I've got to get through it. It's not particularly easy to dub on. The old stuff was lovely, nice and thin. I don't know what happened, they must have changed suppliers, but it's certainly not the same material as the old Hens 45. It's like hen's teeth now, if you forgive the pun. So pull all that CDC back, bring your dubbing in, a couple of turns, and then to finish off, add a little bit of UV resin to your thread, or you can use varnish, super glue, whatever your poison is. Get a few wraps in there, then you can grab your whip finish tool and finish that off. It is a meaty pattern, I did warn you, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you're out in all weather as I am, this could save the blank, because there is many times when you get down that river and it's just awful, but you're too stupid to go home and have a cup of tea, so you stay and fish, and this will do your job. Thanks very much for watching the video. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, please try and click the subscribe button before you leave. I'd really appreciate the support.